after Sonic 2 and Sonic CD, to keep the momentum of the series going, Yuji Naka was once again approached to make the next title, but he came to work for Sega of Japan after the communication issues he had while developing Sonic 2 in America. But the American division did work on Sonic Spinball in the meantime to bridge the gap between releases, but we'll save that for another time. So for this new game, another character was added to the cast, Knuckles the Echidna, who was made to be another rival to Sonic. Fun fact, he was actually originally green, but later made to be red to make him more visually appealing next to Sonic and Tails. And also, you ever wonder about that white mark on his chest? Well, apparently there was supposed to be a Nike sponsored deal, and Sega put it on the character for good faith, but the deal fell through. But like, why would you get a tattoo for a brand deal? That feels like it won't age well in the future. To get back on track, the ideal was to make Sonic 3 on a much grander scope, in a sense what they wanted to do in Sonic 2's development but couldn't due to the time constraints. So it might surprise you that when Sonic 3 came out, while it did gain praise, it also got a lot of criticism for not really changing things and feeling kind of short. And going into say multiplayer or the level select, there were levels and characters you couldn't use anywhere else in the game, so what was up with that? Well, it was decided at some point in development for both time and cartridge space, Sonic 3 would be split up into two halves. Sonic 3, and later on that year, Sonic and Knuckles, which contained the second half of the adventure, and Knuckles fully playable. But the special part of Sonic and Knuckles was the cartridge itself, having what they referred to as lock-on technology. Basically, if you had the Sonic and Knuckles cart, you could put another cartridge on top of it. Now, for most games, this would just give you a no-way screen to show up, and would actually lead you to play the special stage Blue Spheres, but I'll get more into that in a bit. But if you put, say, Sonic 2 in, you would be able to play as Knuckles in that game, where you had a shorter jump, making bosses like Death Egg Robot quite a bit harder. You can glide, which breaks some stages in half like Aquatic Ruin, and strangely, he keeps all his rings after a special stage. Which begs the question, why wasn't it like that in the first place? But the main purpose on the lock-on was to be used with Sonic 3. If these two cartridges were connected, it would combine the two games into one connected adventure, making it the true full sequel, Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Oh wait, sorry, according to the title screen, Sonic 3, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Knuckles. Yeah, we're just gonna refer to it as 3 and K throughout this review to make it a little easier. I give them props for finding a creative solution to the problem, especially, I love how the Sonic & Knuckles cartridge looks. Seriously, I love the minimalist look to this thing. I've always wanted a big poster of this art. You know, looking back, I'm honestly kind of shocked this didn't blow up in Sega's face. I mean, think about it, they tell you to buy a full price game, and then buy another full price game in order to get the real Sonic 3 experience. I mean, that's why Sonic 2 backwards compatibility was added, to help make it a better value. But still, they're lucky that this technology was considered new and revolutionary at the time. Otherwise, this would be a DLC PR nightmare nowadays. Sonic 3 and Knuckles actually has had a hard time being re-released in its complete state. I first played it on the PC way back in the day on that Sonic and Knuckles collection, and my next exposure wouldn't be until the Sonic Mega Collection on GameCube. And even then you had to unlock it first. But usually on collections, they will maybe have Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles, but no ability to lock on, which this might have something to do with some copyright issues with the music, which I'll get into more later. But if that was the case, if some collections can still have Sonic 3 and Knuckles in there, why not their combined version? That just feels like a weird decision. The easiest ways to play this outside the original release are the following: the Sonic Mega Collection, the Xbox Live Arcade version, and the Wii Virtual Console if you had them both for the same system. Also, F in chat for the Wii Virtual Console. I still miss you, buddy. Sonic Classic Collection on the DS, the Steam re-release, and that's it. Compared to the amount of ports that Sonic 1 and 2 get, it's crazy to think that the full game has only been released a few amount of times. And there was to be a mobile remake of this game too, but it was canned during development. So for this video, I'm going to be looking at Sonic 3 and Knuckles as a full package. There's really no point to review the two parts separate when it's very clear they were meant to be one together package. So, with the development history out of the way, let's get to it. So after the events of Sonic 2, Tails gets readings of powerful chaos energy on the nearby Angel Island. Sonic and Tails go to investigate, but as they arrive, they're ambushed by Knuckles, protector of the island, and he steals the Chaos Emeralds for himself. Just want to note the fact that he actually scared the emeralds out of Sonic. That's honestly impressive. You know, in later games, you need a big elaborate scheme in order to drain Supersonic of his powers, and meanwhile, here he just hits him with the... But it turns out Eggman is back, and he's tricked Knuckles into thinking that Sonic and Tails were here to pillage the island's main treasure, the Master Emerald. So Knuckles and Eggman give the duo trouble throughout, but later Eggman takes the Master Emerald for himself to repower up the Death Egg. Realizing what's actually happening, Knuckles decides to help the two out, and they get the Emerald back, return it to Knuckles, and thwart the Doctor's plans again. So a bit more story here than normal, and it flows pretty well into the gameplay, so it works out. Would have maybe liked a little more feel-good moments like Sonic 2's ending, but that's really nitpicky, I'm aware, so let's get on to the presentation. Sonic 3 and K was a late Genesis title, and well, they figured out how to get the most out of this system by now. Environments are more detailed than ever before, and the level maps are bigger than ever. In particular, I love how it keeps changing the level as it goes on, such as the time of day on Angel Island Zone, where it starts off nice and peaceful, and then halfway through Act 1, everything is set ablaze. Or Carnival Night Act 1 will be normal, but Act 2 will have the lights off. It helps give each part of the zone their own identity, and I like that. I also like how they now transition directly into the next act after beating a boss, and have a little cutscene after a zone to show how you get to the next one. They've had these things in the past, but it's mostly been at the end of the game, and here it's for every zone, which helps make it feel like a more grand journey. The gang has also gotten a bunch of new fresh sprites, and while I do like the majority of them, I'm kind of on and off on how I feel about Sonic's. Like when he's running at full speed or when he's supersonic, it looks great. But there's just something off about his slower, more standstill sprites. Maybe it's the face, he just looks a little too slap-happy for me. It's not bad at all, but I would say I prefer the older look. The music, however, has a bit of an interesting story to it. Mostly in the Sonic 3 half of the game, because the music for Sonic 3 was composed by Michael Jackson, like, King of Pop MJ. So this entire story was an ongoing rumor for years, and I won't get too much into it. If you want a summation of it, go check out Game Trailer's Pop Fiction episode on Sonic 3. I'll put that in the card right there. But Sega had close ties to Jackson, with the video game Michael Jackson's Moonwalker being one of the system's biggest titles. And with their relationship, Sega asked MJ to work on Sonic 3 and he agreed, and certain tracks like Carnival Night and Sonic 3's credit music have been confirmed as tracks MJ worked on. But somewhere down the line, he grew unhappy with how the Genesis was producing the music, as it wasn't sounding like how he envisioned it, and decided to leave the project and remain uncredited. And listening to it now, I can understand what he meant. Remember how I said that the Sonic series had this ability to use the sound card to their advantage in the Genesis era? I don't feel the same way this time. Marble Garden, Carnival Night, Sandopolis are some examples that come to mind. And while the compositions are good, the instrumentation can hurt a lot of tracks. Launch Base is probably my biggest example, mainly because of the compressed sound of the guy shouting, and the song doesn't quite properly loop right. But on the flip side, you have some really high quality tracks here. Angel Island, Hydro City, Ice Cap, Mushroom Hill, Lava Reef, Act 1. Those are fantastic, which makes the tracks that don't jive with me all the weirder. Though one track I think most of us can agree that could have used some work, the Supersonic theme. I mean, it's bad enough that it's the same as the Invincibility when Sonic 2 had 2 separate songs, but okay, well, take a listen. It's okay, right? Well, that's the entire song. Now imagine that looping over and over and over and over. It gets tiring in no time flat. So Sonic 3 and K definitely has its ups and downs when it comes to the presentation for me, but what about the gameplay? So 3 and K is about the same structure-wise. Get dropped into a level and race your way to the end to fight a boss and move on to the next one. However, you now have a save system that will start you at the beginning of a zone if you get a game over. And when you beat the game, you can go back to any previous zone at your leisure. You also now can control 3 different characters. Sonic, of course, is back, but he doesn't have that super peel out from last time. Instead, he's got this new insta-shield that you can get by pressing the jump button again in the air. It gives him a few extra frames of invincibility, and he extends his hitbox out a little bit more to do damage where he normally would get hit. Tails now has his flying mechanic that he would later become known for, where he can fly anywhere he wants to as long as he doesn't tire himself out. if you have a second controller when you're playing as Sonic and Tails, Tails can carry Sonic up to different platforms. But new to the cast is Knuckles, and he's definitely the most different out of the three. His jump is a little shorter, meaning that he can't get away with as much in, say, boss fights, but he has the ability to glide and climb up walls, as well as being able to break down obstacles in his way to make new paths that Sonic and Tails can't get to. But his paths are generally a bit more treacherous as a result. Think of it like Tails is easy, Sonic is normal, and Knuckles is the hard mode of the game. Also add to your kit are 3 new shields, replacing the normal one that you got before. But each of them gives Sonic a different modifier for his double jump. Fire makes you invincible to fire, and Sonic gets a new dash forward. Bubble makes it so you can't drown, and Sonic gets a bounce jump that lets him get more height the higher he bounces from. And Electric, the best one, gives you a double jump with Sonic, lets you cling on the ceilings, saves you from electrical attacks, and brings rings close to you if you're nearby. Now, since stages end with a mini-boss and then go straight into Act 2, there is no giant ring to go into a special stage, and when you go to a signpost, you'll get these new bonus games that let you get more rings or a shield. So you may be wondering how you get those elusive emeralds. Well, in stages, you'll find these giant rings if you got a sense for exploring. Hop into one of these and you'll be brought to blue spheres, where you need to turn all the blue spheres red in order to get the emerald. If you hit a red, you're sent out. Just a tip, if you get all the blue spheres on the perimeter, you'll be able to change all the spheres in the vicinity into rings, making the stage much easier. Collect all the emeralds and you can turn into your super form once again. As long as you're Sonic or Knuckles, because Tails is out of luck again. That is until the second half of the game. Once you enter Mushroom Hill Zone, the Sonic and Knuckles part of the game, you can forfeit your super form in order to do 7 more special stages to get super emeralds. And with these, Tails can finally get a super form where he has these little tiny birds that destroy anything near him, starting the tradition that small creatures are the actual gods of destruction in this universe. But Sonic and Knuckles can get a little something called hyper forms. With these, Sonic is even faster. He now has a double jump that he can aim in any direction, and he destroys any enemy on screen when he uses it. Knuckles gets improved climbing and gliding speed, and when he collides with a wall, he destroys every enemy on screen. And for Sonic, he needs to at least get his super form in order to reach Doomsday Zone, the true final boss of his campaign. And there is a 2-player mode, but it's 5 laps around a really small arena, and it's even lamer than Sonic 2, so not much to cover there. Other than that, that's the big changes for 3 and K. So how did this double adventure fare? Sonic 3 and K, you can feel, was a game on a much bigger scale, and as such, it has some of the most content in the entire classic series. For one, having 3 characters with different playstyles does add a lot of replay value, and each can take advantage of different tactics and alternate paths, which provide more ways to approach levels. Especially in Knuckles' case, because his routes are exclusive to him, which sometimes include brand new boss fights, which is a great way for making his playthrough stand out. And their abilities really lean into the exploration of Sonic 3, not only for the elemental shields, which I do think help with the variety of the gameplay, especially for Sonic, but also helping that are the secret rings. Which, while I'm fine with how, say, Sonic 1 and CD handled them, I like this system too. It encourages me to try different routes to see if I can get an emerald. And potentially, you can get these emeralds in much faster time. Like, you can get 3 to 4 of them in Angel Island, the first zone of the game if you play your cards right. And yeah, I do go after them because super forms are a lot more fun to use this time. Mainly because the level design feels like they were built more with the super forms in mind. And the platforming isn't as precise, so I can zoom around like the little golden devil I am. And if you manage to find a special ring after you get all the emeralds, you get a free 50 rings, which means you can transform right away. I really like that. And on top of that, you have the hyper forms, which really do add a nice sense of risk versus reward, as you give up your super form, but if you can clear those special stages, you get an even better form, and I think that's a nice step for going a step beyond. And while Hypersonic and Knuckles are really neat, honestly, Tails is my favorite one. Yeah, you don't glow rainbow colors, but that Flicky Brigade, they do all the work for ya at that point. It's easily the most insane form out of them all. And of course, the game has some good levels. I really like ones like Angel Island. Hydrocity is a fun, fast-paced water level. And yeah, I called it both Hydro City and Hydrocity in this review. I don't really care, but I know certain people in the comments will. Ice Cap is great for the music alone. Sky Sanctuary is a fun calm before the storm level. But honestly, I think Mushroom Hill takes the cake for my favorite zone in the game. A great balance of speed and platforming, lots of routes, a ton of special stages creating greater sense of rewards for exploration. Plus, I just love the theme of how it changes seasons as you go through the level. And I like how each act now ends with a boss, and in general, I think they're more fun than previously. They have a lot more variety and don't go down within a few seconds. The final few bosses in particular do a great job for the finale, and with how all the stages are interconnected now, it does help with the grand scope of the game and make it feel like a much larger adventure than its predecessors. But that does come at a price. Sonic 3 is a big game, and as such, there is some fat that I feel like could have been trimmed in my opinion. I'm pretty mixed on how I feel about Blue Spheres as a special stage. I like it more than Sonic 1 and 2 special stages, as it feels like I have more control with these, but I don't like how one mistake ruins an entire run, and the special rings aren't as common as you might think, so losing one of these hits a bit harder. Not to mention it takes about a second for a turn to register, leading to some frustration when you can react faster than the game can recognize it. I also tend to get tired of these more, not only because their design is very homogeneous between them, but if you go for all the Super Emeralds with all 3 characters, that's 42 special stages you need to play at minimum. Needless to say, I burnt out of these by the end of my playtime. Speaking of the Emeralds, I never understood why you were locked out of going Hyper until the second half of the game. The extra 50 rings is nice and all, but if I can still do the normal special stages in the second half, why can't I start them earlier and take advantage of those rings that I find? Especially because you lose your super form anyway when you try to go for the Super Emeralds. It's really noticeable with Tails since you get nothing for the Emeralds until the final Super Emerald, so I would have appreciated Super Tails more if I could attempt to get him earlier. And you can get all the Super Emeralds in Mushroom Hill alone, so what's the point of waiting that long? And speaking of the forms, I do think levels are built more with super forms in mind, though maybe a little too much. I think they really wanted you to have the forms to speed through these levels as fast as possible to make the reward for the super forms more worth it, because some of the zones without them are honestly a mess. Lava Reef being my prime example. If you don't have a form or at least a fire shield, good luck! It's frankly obnoxious, and just as bad, if not worse, than say Metropolis Zone from Sonic 2. And honestly, there's not many levels I enjoy this time. As I stated before, a few of them I think are good, but a lot of them are just okay, straight up bad, or have a gimmick that just sours my mood in them. Marble Garden Zone I have never enjoyed as a stage. It goes on for way too long, and has level design that, especially with Sonic, is a pain to navigate through and relies way too much on this spinner to move around and break obstacles, which kills the pacing as it's already slow, and if you lose it, you need to go all the way back to grab it again to continue the process. Also, why can't I break these walls with Super Knuckles? You know, the character whose whole gimmick is to break down obstacles? You're gonna tell me he can break this breakable wall but not this one? That's just inconsistent. Carnival Night is easily one of the longest stages in the game. And no, it's not for the barrel. Look at this controller, there's only so many buttons, it's up and down guys, it's not that hard. But I don't like how this level often loops back in on itself, making the stage last longer than it should. Ice Cap is also kind of guilty of that too now that I think about it. But for Knuckles' Carnival Night, the stage ends before it gets the chance to really even begin, making it such an odd stage. Launch Base for being Sonic 3's main final level just doesn't leave that much of an impression. Flying Battery has a lot of waiting around for obstacles to happen so you can move on, and it's filled to the brim with bottomless pits. Sandopolis is easily considered the worst zone in the game, and rightfully so. Act 1 isn't that bad, it just goes on for too long. But Act 2 relies on you doing door opening puzzles for almost the entire level, and the other fourth of it is just spent on looping slides and trying to make the lights stay on. This level is just straight up bad, and I personally have yet to meet anyone that legitimately likes this stage. Lava Reef, as mentioned before, is only really fun with fire shields or super forms. Hidden Palace Zone and Sky Sanctuary are alright, and Death Egg, while not bad, just isn't that exciting of a final level, and I'm not really a fan of the anti-gravity that it keeps pulling. So yeah, without many levels I enjoy and not having fun going for the emeralds, I just don't have as much fun with this game as I do the previous classic games. And I know many people put this as their favorite game in the classic series, but for me, I just can't agree with that. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is a game that I feel like I should like more on paper, but in execution just doesn't feel right to me. Like in Sonic 2 and CD, I did my Emerald and Tails runs right after doing my original run, not only to get them done, but I generally felt compelled to play the game again, and it was just short enough that there wasn't that much of a problem doing so. Sonic 3 and K is a lot more to take in, and if you're looking for a more meaty adventure, this will do it for you. But for me, I think it's a little too big for its own good, and I honestly had to take some long breaks in between each run. The other classic games, even Sonic 1, I can still pick up and have a good time, no problem. 3 and K, on the other hand, I need to tell myself I'm gonna be on this one for a while. And I can't say I was having as much fun with this as I did with 1, 2, or CD. And as such, I'd say it's my least favorite in the classic series, but that's not me calling the game bad. 3 and K is still a solid Genesis platformer that rewards your persistence, and it can be the most gratifying game to 100%. And for many, they do find this as their favorite in the classic series, if not the entire franchise. So I'd say you should totally check this one out, but for me, I enjoy it, but just not as much as the games before it. If you want to pick up one of the few re-releases and play the game yourself, go on ahead, get your own opinion, you know? That's why I do these things in the first place. I just want to share how I feel about games and see what you guys think. Now after this, mainline Sonic releases would start to fizzle out with stuff like Sonic 3D Blast or Sonic R being the few exceptions, until Sega finally decided to go back to his roots with a game everybody was getting hyped for. Sonic 4. You probably just remembered that that game exists. Hoo boy!